Okay, thank you.
All right. So, as near as I can tell, the problem has been, uh, hold on a second. Let me get my, um, let me get my grade book open and see who has successfully, let's see, first notebook check. There are only a couple students that haven't done their first notebook check yet properly. So I think that's not the issue. The issue is preparing your notebook for accessing the demonstration video for labs, beginning with number 3, waters of constitution and hydration, because that's the first lab in which you're expected to produce a formal report. And as a consequence, I've restricted access to the demonstration video until your lab notebook is properly set up to receive the information that's contained in the demo. Now, that was a long sentence, so maybe I'll break it down into how-tos. So why don't I share? Let me share my screen. Now, stop me anytime if I'm losing you, or if you have a question that just pops into your head.
Okay.
All right. So from here, I want to go to, let's see. All right, there's the landing page for our course. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So I'm into it as a student, so you should only see what you would expect to see as a student. So content, of course. And then what I want to do now is, rather than go to the lab modules, first go to, let's see, let me collapse that. Try that again. Let's collapse this one. All right, now. Notebook, lab notebook reports and how to. That's where you're going to find the information you need. In addition to the syllabus, of course. This is it. I put this little document together to try to help my students understand what I'm expecting to see for each experiment. And for you, it'll be starting with experiment 3. So I want you to prepare your lab notebook pages with this information. So you would go from, say you've got your lab notebook open, right? And here's just inside cover. And here you have your table of contents. All right, you remember doing that. For each experiment, I want you to write the title here and the page number that it starts on. Okay. Then you flip over to the page where you're going to start, and you're going to have and now you're going to have your notebook like this. And on this side, you're going to have odd pages, right? You ought to know with that one. Say you want to start on page 5, and this would be page 4. Okay. And you got your grid. I'm not going to draw the grid in and make it too messy. But here, starting on this page, I want this information. Put the title of the experiment here, and then under subheadings, you have your introduction. You can get most of that from the hard copy document, the method document. Introduction.
Where is that at?
All right. So let's Off camera, I'm going to open first. I'm going to go open up the. I'm going to open up the experiment we're talking about, the very next one to come.
Okay. Okay.
Let's see if I've already got it in here somewhere. No, I got to go look for it. So let's open, and then I'll share it in just a second. Okay, let's see, 3. Find the one. Where did I put it? That's data, that's discussion. Here we go, here it is. Okay, so I'm going to open this one. And I'm going to pull it over here. And let me shrink it a little bit so it'll fit. Okay. All right. Now what I want to do is here we go. Stop the share so I can share the other document. And it's this one right here. Okay. All right. Can you see the waters of constitution and hydration?
Yes.
Okay. Each one of these documents that you'll find in each of the modules in Brightspace, there'll be a separate module for each experiment, and there'll be a document there, and this is the document for that experiment. Notice I've crossed this one out because that never works anyway. So,
Okay. Hold on.
so here are the objectives. Sometimes it's really simple and sometimes it's more involved, depending on how much information I think you're going to need to complete the experiment. This one's very simple. You're going to use stoichiometry to determine the molar and mass relationships of molecules and the waters that they contain, and use an analytical balance and crucible property. If it were me, I would read through the experiment and then I'd go back to the introduction and I'd put more information into it that I thought I might need to if I have to come back in 6 months or a year and look at this same thing in my notebook, can I understand it with just the notebook?
Right. Well, how did you find this document? Because it's not showing up on our end.
Oh, okay. Hold on a second. Let me look for it first.
Okay.
And then if I need to, I'll share it. It should be right in here.
That's what this is.
Yeah, there it is. Okay. So screen sharing is paused. Let's see. Resume share.
I've seen it, or I just don't know where we go. Right.
I wonder if there's a quicker way. Hold on a second. New share. Yeah, let me try that. Save some time. Here we go. So now we're back in Brightspace. You see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So if you go down to the lab modules here,
Okay.
and we're going down to lab exercise 3.
Okay.
And then this is the page that pops up over here on the right. If you click on this one right here, it's usually the first one in the group. Waters of constitution and hydration. You click on that one and go in here, then the document itself is right here.
Oh, okay.
You can either click on that and it'll pop up in your browser. And then you can print it from there, or you can save it from there. Or what I prefer to do is just right click on this, and the drop down menu says save link as. Then you can save it on your computer.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We found it.
Okay, and I'm glad you brought that up because when you get ready to submit your report, you go back into the same location, and right here is where you upload it.
Okay.
Okay.
So another question, I know we have like the notebook pages, but are we supposed to type something out and submit it too?
Yes, the notebook is separate from the report.
So what goes into that report?
I'm glad you asked that question. Um, let's go back. Uh, yeah, let's go back.
So we turn on this. Is there a separate submission box for the
And let's
Yeah.
go back to
I think so.
notebooks here. And this document I showed you earlier, plus this one is a little more extensive.
Okay.
This example lab notebook is probably a better way to approach this. Okay, as soon as it loads. Now this lab notebook is from a former student, and I just took away identifiable information. And notice that on this page, you've got your table of contents, you've got the name of, let's see, freezing point. This is a second semester, so these won't correlate to anything you're doing.
Okay.
There's the name of the experiment, and this student decided to put the date in too. That's fine. All you need is the page number where it starts. And then, let's see. This student decided to start on page 5. There's the title. There's the objective of the experiment. Then you'll have materials, the materials you're going to need. And this is the stuff that you're going to put in there before you actually watch the video. So the video demonstration is actually myself. I am in the lab with a GoPro camera and sometimes a second camera to show what I'm doing in the lab. And I will sometimes I'll report the data verbally, and very often I'll go over to the whiteboard and record the data so that you can be sure and get the data that you're going to need to complete the experiment. If the lab has pre-lab questions in it, you put those in and you work them out before you submit these pages. And I'll tell you how to submit those pages in a minute.
Okay.
Then you skip the even pages. The left-hand side are all even pages. Don't write anything there. Those are reserved for problems like large blocks of information that you forgot to put in, and you can go to the left-hand side and write those in. So it'll be close to the location where it occurs on this side. You may have to put extra stuff over here. So I always leave the evens open.
Okay.
Or you can use it to draw a graph, right? That's the reason I have quadriline pages, because sometimes you need to draw a graph in. Okay, so now we're back to the odd page, and this is where you put the procedure in. And you step by step. This is what the document that we just looked at on Brightspace tells you to do. Okay, and you can elaborate. You can put more information in here than is actually in the procedure if you think you need something as a reminder to say, be sure and do this. Okay, keep in the back of your mind when you're preparing to do an experiment in this lab, or even if you get out in the real world and have a job in a lab, you're going to have a lab notebook. And the lab notebook is there to guide your performance in the lab, to be sure you know what you're going to do when you go in. The first rule of safety in laboratories is know what you're going to do before you walk in the lab. Right? That's the best way to avoid any accidents or injuries or fatalities. And this is one way to do it. Set up your lab notebook. Now, this person apparently forgot to put this table in, and they put their data on the even page side. So this example has mistakes in it also. But you're going to have a section on data, and you set it up so that you have a place to put all the data that you know the experiment's going to require. More procedure. And then this student decided to take the data and plot it in, this was probably Excel spreadsheet. You can do that. You can do it by hand if it's called for. You can do it by hand, or you can do it in the Excel spreadsheet, and then print it and cut out that and paste it in your book. And those even pages on the left are a good place to paste those things in here. One thing that the student forgot to do was to sign it, initial or sign across this border right here, between the pasted and the underlying page. The reason you do that is if it falls out or somebody rips it out, you know that something's missing that needs to be there. Okay, so here we have more data. And then, but this information, you don't have to put it in when you're preparing your notebook. Just reserve a space for it, right? Reserve a space for your data. Then if you have any calculations that you did for the pre-lab, they go here. And then reserve more space for post-lab calculations. Okay. Then you're going to have maybe post-lab questions. And some of those calculations that you just did in the calculation section would address answers to questions here. And there were several questions in this particular lab. Okay, that we're into another lab here. Okay, what this student also forgot to do was to put in a section for summary and conclusions. Just use on the next odd page, which they don't have because we got a new lab coming, but on the next odd page it should have been a section for summary and conclusions, and that's all you have to put, just the heading. At this point, you only need to write in the introduction. Let's go back up. It's catching. I have to give it time to catch up with me. There we go. You need to write in the title, the objectives, the materials, pre-lab questions. You can even include calculations in the question itself for this purpose. Procedure, step-by-step procedure. It has to be there. Reserved space for data. So just leave as many pages as you think you need for data. This student put data here, and apparently there's a second activity with data for that one also. So that's the data for the second section. It's better if you can keep the data all together, but you can separate it if you identify certainly identify where the data goes and what it belongs to. But you're not going to have any data initially because you're just setting up your notebook to receive that information. But you have to have a section reserved. Calculation section reserved, and the missing section, lab questions, of course, and the missing section was summary and conclusions. Now, once you have those sections reserved and all that information in there that's required, then you take photographs or you scan the pages for that experiment only, and you submit them. So let's go back No, not there. Let's go back. Maybe I need to back up. Okay. Let's back up to here and go back to the module here and here. Okay, so we're back at the exercise 3 module. And here is where the exercise 3 lab notebook pages, that's where you go in and you take those scanned or photographed pages of your prepared notebook. It's not complete yet. It's just prepared for that experiment, and upload them right here. Right, so you go find them where you save them in your notebook. And if you can produce a PDF file, that's fine. If you can't, and you just have image files, then you can select multiple files, image files, and submit them all at once. And just, it says open. And when you do that, they'll show up down here, and then you just, I think you tell it to submit. Okay, what happens with those pages? They show up in my gradebook in assignments that are completed. And I go into those lab notebook pages and grade them. Is everything there that you're going to need? And I grade them on that's kind of it's somewhat subjective, but I'm looking for those sections to be there. And the ones that need writing completion, they should be there. The ones that need reserve spaces, they should be there. And if I give you an 80% score or better, then the system knows to open up the demonstration video. So when that grade shows up in your grade book for those pages, then you will see the demonstration video, which is not open yet because I'm a student. Right? So if I go back out here and
The video would have to.
is everything okay?
So is there something we should watch like before to get like the materials and stuff for us to submit to you before the other video opens?
It should be in the hard copy. Yeah, it should be in the hard copy. I'll occasionally,
Okay.
yeah, you may be referencing, okay, hold on. Let's go down here. Pre-lab discussion, right? That would be helpful, right? It gives you an overview of the experiment. And yes, that would be a good way to be introduced to the topic so that you can fill out your notebook correctly. So view that video along with, print yourself a hard copy and then view the video. And then once I've graded your pages from the notebook, then this video will open up. You'll see it in your module. It will be available to you. Until I give you a grade for those pages, it won't be there.
Okay.
So when you click on the demo, it's going to take you to YouTube, to my YouTube channel where I have stored the video. And this is what it should look like. Okay.
Now, this next lab that we're going to do is
So it goes on, and you can pause it whenever you need to. You can back it up. You can go forward. These videos were produced for the COVID panic times. So when we couldn't come into the lab and do the experiments, I produced these videos myself and then posted them, and my college students had to endure the same problems that you're going through now. As though that's the only way I could figure that we could complete the process and give them at least a partial lab experience. By the way, does the Votech Center have laboratory space?
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that I thought this was really the only way that I could approach a lab at your location, is because there's really no lab space to do a live lab. So it's not the best of worlds, but it's the best I could come up with. Okay, so we're over here, and let's see. Well, this is what it looks like for the instructor, so it's not going to be exactly that way. When you click on that video, as I showed you before, then the demo will pop up, and when it does, you'll have your notebook there with you, and you'll be recording observations and data from my performance of the experiment. And then once you've completed that, then you can answer questions that are embedded in the document. Let's see. If we go down here, laboratory questions, all right? So you've got these questions that need to be answered. Sometimes the questions will also tell you to do things to process the data a certain way and enter that information in the data section. So if you have done the calculations in the calculation section and you enter that data in the data section, then all you have to do to answer the question is just say, refer to calculations and data table. But if the question asks for a response, a synthesis of what you've learned so far, then you answer it in this section. And that's in your notebook. So one of the reasons I want you to be so thorough in your notebook, in preparing it, getting it approved, and filling it out properly, completing it in your notebook, is because once you've got it done in the notebook, writing the formal report is easy, because the formal report follows the same format as your notebook, only it's typed. It has to be typed because I don't have the time or the inclination to try to decipher handwriting. Some handwriting is beautiful, right? But some students have a very sloppy penmanship, and so it has to be typed. Now, if you're not good at typing, then that's a disadvantage. I mean, I can't argue with that. It's if you haven't learned to touch type, do they still teach touch typing in high school?
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh, that's right. That's not good. So I guess you're going to have to hunt and peck, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. But nowadays they might call it keyboarding. Do they teach keyboarding?
No.
Ah.
I think they stopped that in middle school, like early middle school.
Oh, okay. So by the time you get to high school, many
You
of you
should be good at it.
know how to type.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I was about to panic on your behalf. Okay. So the report is going to follow a certain format, and that format parallels your lab notebook. Let's see. I have a sample report in here. Let me go back to the student. So you won't see a bunch of junk that'll get in the way. I'll go back to content, and then let's go back over to lab notebooks and reports. Okay. We got down to your example lab notebook. These are lab report instructions, and they're useful. This common errors in preparing a formal lab report, that's good, but you may not want to focus on that just yet.
Okay.
Look at the, let's see, this one right here, example report. Okay. This was an actual report from a student, and it's got the grading rubric with it also. We're going to bypass that for now. Okay, so there's the title page. Notice it's got the title. It will have your name and any lab partners that I think, did you send me the message, Kylie, about whether you could cooperate with another student?
Yes, I did.
Okay. This is where you would put your lab partner. So if you watch the video together, that's all right. And record the data and compare your data so that you both have the same data and both heard the same thing and saw the same things in the lab. That's okay. But that's where it ends, right? Your lab partner is your partner in the lab only. So when you write your report, you do it by yourself.
Okay.
You don't share any text between the two of you. Okay, then you want to identify what course it is. And you could include, well, if you include the CRN number, the course reference number, 17443, I think it is. 423, 17423. If you don't have that, then just put your location. Okay, you can put your high school, you can put the Votech Center, just so I don't get it confused with my other 103 lab reports. And then the date that the lab experiment was performed, or the date that you watched the video. You can put the date that you completed the report. It's not necessary. Some of my students like to have that on there, and that's fine because they're going to get the report back in its graded form, and this information may be useful to them in the future if you want to go back and look at something that you did. That's another point that I almost overlooked. You want to, well, I sort of touched on it before. You want to set up your lab notebook, and you want to write your report in such a way that you or anybody else can come back 6 months, a year, 3 years later, and take your lab notebook or the report and reproduce the experiment. That's the amount of information that needs to be in that report or in your notebook, right? Because if you ever get a job in a laboratory, whether it's with the government or with a company, you're going to keep a lab notebook, but remember that lab notebook doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the company or it belongs to the government. So when you leave, it stays so that the next person that comes in that wants to pick up with your research or with your project can understand what you were doing and pick it up from that point on. So that's how detailed you want your lab notebook and your report, so that you or anybody else can reproduce the experiment in the future. So notice the structure is the same. We have objectives, we have materials. Oh, one thing that was missing that I forgot to mention was safety. You want to put a blurb in your notebook and in the report about safety. What are your safety concerns, right? Are you going to be using an open flame? Are you going to be using hazardous materials? In that case, it would be, is your instructor going to be using hazardous materials in the video? But still, try to imagine yourself in the lab. Are you going to be using, in this case, are you going to be using a pressure vessel that's going to be pressurized to 60 pounds per square inch or more? The vessel is supposed to be good up to 100 psi, but you still want to take precautions, right? Wear eye protection, wear your lab coat, and whatever else is required to stay safe and perform the experiment without threat of injury. Then your procedures. The difference in the procedure for the report is in the tense, the sentence structure. In your notebook, you wrote, do this, like obtain, go find yourself a barometer and read the barometric pressure. Go find yourself a bicycle pump. Go get the pressure vessel. Go get the syringe that's going to trap the gas inside, and that type of thing. It says do this, do this, do this. That's in your lab notebook. In the report, it occurs after you've done the experiment, and the report says this is what was done. Right? It may be slightly different in certain places, and when you view the video and you have your lab notebook and your procedure, if the procedure differs from what's being done, then that means there's been a change and you need to make a change in the procedure. So how do you do that? Well, if you have, let's see, we're not in the intro anymore. We're in the procedure, right? And you have steps 1, 2, and 3, and so on. If you have something in here that's written there and there's a change, all you have to do, and this is all in ink, I can't emphasize that too strongly, no pencil, no erasures, right? Once you write it, it's there until you correct it, if necessary. So if we need a correction, you just draw a line through the correction and write the correction above it, and then initial it, right? If you have a big section that needs correcting, like you make huge mistakes in here, right? Put a big X through it, initial it there, and then over here, you make the corrections, okay? Now that usually won't occur unless you accidentally puts the wrong stuff in here, and you, before you watch the video, you catch your mistake and you put it over here. But for minor changes, you can do those during the video. Okay. All right. So we're still with the same structure. Now, how do you write the procedure in such a way as to say what you did? Right. Instead of, say, in the lab notebook, you would say measure the barometric pressure with a barometer. In the procedure for the report, you would say the local air pressure was measured with a barometer located in the classroom. That's called third person passive past tense. And if you want to, you can take that to your English teacher and be sure I'm telling you right. But what you want to say is, this is what was done. We can go down further, say, the tire valve was connected to an electric air pump. In the procedure in your lab notebook, you would say, connect the tire valve of your pressure vessel to the air pump. Right? There's a difference there. Because if there's a change, we want to know exactly what you did. That's what the procedure is for in the report. And I'll go back to the top and point that out here. You know, I have to turn your head sideways. This section on grammar, notice that the points are highest on the far left, like 12 points each item. And if you get the grammar correct, that's 12 points. Third person passive past tense. If you don't, right? If you use do this, do this, do this, then you only get 6 points. And if I detect that you've actually regurgitated the procedure from the hard copy into your report, then you get no credit. right, for that item. While we're here, this rubric tells you what I'm looking for, right? Each one of these sections. If you can get this far left on all of them, you can actually have more than 100 points, more than 100%. 12 times 1, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 times 12 is what?
I don't know.
Let's see, 2 times 9 is 18, and 1 is 100. So you can get 108%. Also, if there are separate questions to be answered in your report, and you get the questions wrong, then I take off for them. I subtract points for questions. All right. Let's see. Let's go back to where we were. All right. Now, once you've got the procedure laid out in numerical order and what you actually did, then you have a section on data. Depending on what type of data is, it depends on what you need to present. Very often, the data will be, well, actually, by definition, data is numerical. Right? Observations are prose. Right? You would write sentences of what you observed if that's called for. But in this case, we had data. We were measuring the pressure inside the vessel and the volume of air that was inside a little squeeze vial inside. So not to get too far into the weeds, presentation of your table, your data in a table is a very effective way to capture your reader's attention and focus their attention on the values, the information that was obtained. If you just put a list of things down here and write numbers next to them, you might lose your reader in the first 2 or 3 minutes. And think about this report as something, I mean, if you're going to publish your work in a referee journal, in a scientific journal, right, what you're trying to do is to convince your readers that what you did in your experiment was worthwhile, and later your conclusions are valid based upon your data. Right? If you can't convince your readers of that fact, they're just going to take your report and throw it in the trash. And as an instructor, I'll be looking as if I'm a researcher looking for information and research results that can help me in my work. So if I see that your report is unintelligible, then I'm going to grade it down. Okay, there's more data and calculations. Actually, these are calculations. This student presented the data in a table. Probably one of the post-lab questions required you to present it in a table, in a graph. And you've had experience drawing graphs now, because the first lab we did was how to draw graphs. So you know how to do that. Now, if you're not comfortable with Excel or any other type of graphing program, you won't be able to produce this type of graph. In that case, I've made exceptions. You can draw it by hand, then photograph it and insert that image file into your document. It's very easy to do in Word. I'm not sure about other programs, but Word, you can insert pictures. I think that's what they call them, insert pictures. So this particular report had a lot of information and data. Okay, now we get down to post-lab questions. Let's see, post-lab question number 8. Okay, they've kind of split things up a little bit. This is a section on calculations. You're showing me your calculations. And notice this student typed the calculations out. If you have to handwrite your calculations, then I'm going to grade that down. Right, so you need to learn how to input. Word has an equation editor where you can build equations in the editor and it'll insert them for you. So that would be the best way to go with Microsoft Word. I assume that's available for you in your where you're located now. Or you may have Microsoft Office at home or some other location. It seems it's very friendly for writing these reports. Sometimes you need an equation editor and sometimes you don't, right? Like here, I expect this person just said 1/v equals, and then, well, that required an equation editor, I think.
Right.
Let's see. We're still in calculations. Now we get to pre-lab and post-lab questions, right? And I'll check those out to see if they're valid, if the answers are correct. This particular post-lab section had questions in it that required producing information in the data section. So all this student had to do was refer to the tables in the data section. Okay. But sometimes the calculations and answers to the questions were required in this section. What you want to do is also think about be kind to your instructor, right? Make it easy for me to find these sections so that I can grade them quickly and accurately. This student had to hand draw this part. The question asks for something that required a little picture. So drawing the picture by hand here was okay, and you just insert that hand-drawn picture into your document. Okay, then conclusions and summary. Or summary and conclusions, you can write it either way. The summary part of this section will have a very short paragraph about what was done in the lab. Right, that's the easy part. The conclusions part is to synthesize what you've learned and make sense of it. Say, look at the errors. Were there errors in the information? Say, when you try to remember when you were doing your graphing. Say you had a graph like this and you had points like that. I'm not going to label axes, but you tried to draw a best fit line and it didn't go exactly through all the points, right? The perfect best fit line would mean that there was no error, but the other points, they're off. Is there some explanation for those errors? What could explain those errors? Were they systematic errors? I mean, were the same errors made every time? Were they all below the line, or most of them below the line? Or were they random? Think about those errors. What could be done in the future to minimize those errors? Right? In every published paper, in every scientific journal, the researcher, the writer, is expected to include a section on where do we go from here? Right? What could be done from this point on? Do we need to go back and redo the experiment to refine our results, and or do we need to progress from there to the next? Propose, what can you do next? I mean, what could you do next? I mean, is this a dead end? And then in the rubric, you'll notice that points are granted for real world applications, right? We're trying to demonstrate a principle in chemistry here with each of these labs. So what's the application? Where can you witness, in this case, Boyle's law? Where can you witness that in the real world, right? This student referenced, let's see, balloons, filling up balloons, and let's see, people involved in pressurized gases for a living, like in the say a petroleum refinery, for instance, right? They're dealing with gases all the time. I would have liked a little more detail, but that was headed in the right direction. Then if you use any external sources to back up your arguments, then you would cite them here. You won't always have cited references here, but if you do, that's where they go at the very end. Okay, I've been talking a lot. Any questions so far?
Understand that.
Yeah, I think we understand it. I'm pretty good right now.
Okay, I know this is a new experience for actually college students, right? Some of my college students have never been exposed to this type of work before. So you're not out there all alone, being confused or disoriented. The first time you do one of these formal reports, it's going to be a brand new experience and maybe even frightening. But once you get the hang of it and you get my response, my grading response, then you can see where you need to make improvements. And I should see steady improvement through the semester.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, let's see. Do you need to go?
No.
Okay. This is where, let's go back to reports and how-tos. This is where this particular document, common errors in preparing a formal lab report, may be useful.
Okay.
Okay, so now that we've gone through the lab report, then I've got some ideas here on how to improve your lab report. Okay.
Okay.
A couple of pages. There's also, I didn't want to have to produce this this document, but I found it necessary. What is plagiarism in writing a lab report? And this describes what plagiarism is in reference to the current project that you have to complete. Okay, so just take a few minutes to look at that. And basically, if you only corroborate with your lab partners on watching the video and obtaining the data, after that, you're on your own. If you do that, then you should have no trouble with this concept of plagiarism. Okay, let's see. Did I see something else of useful? Oh, here's how to enable your equation editor in Microsoft Word. If you can't find the equation editor to fill in those equations, then this document will guide you through the activation or enabling of the equation editor. Hopefully. This extra stuff is, I put that in a separate section because it's not absolutely necessary. It's just stuff that you may be interested in if you have the time. Okay, let's see, scratch my head. I also have a, let's see, this extended character sets. You may or may not have ever seen this before. In when you're typing out a report, sometimes you need special characters, and they're not on your keyboard. Right. One option is to go down here. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see my arrow down here at the bottom?
I think so.
Okay. It's highlighting the character map. If you go to the character map, you can pick out these strange characters that you might need, like Greek letters or, oh, I don't know, fractions even, or greater than or less than, or things like that. Those things are not readily available on your keyboard. So you can either go to the character map and find them and copy and paste them into your document, which takes several steps, or you can use these extended character sets. And the left one, the yellow one, and the blue one are active for Microsoft computers. The ones on the right, I'm not real familiar with. I dug those up for the benefit of those who still use Apple products. Maybe they work. You ought to check them out to be sure. But I'm pretty sure about most of these. And if the one on this, I'll tell you how to do it in a second. If the characters don't show up correctly on this side, then try this combination, key combination. Now, the combination that you want to use is you hold down the Alt key, right, on your keyboard, and then you go to the number pad. Right. I know some computers don't have number pads, so that's a problem. But if there's a number pad on your computer, you know what I mean. Like you got squares here, here, and here. Let's see. And there's one big one down here. This is 0. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That number pad is usually on the far right of your keyboard. Okay, hold down the Alt key. And while you're holding it, type out the sequence of numbers here on the left, the code. If you do that, then when you let up on the Alt key, that character should show up in your document. So that's just a single step and you're done. You can move on. Notice the ones on the left are all preceded with zeros or other numbers. They're 4 digits. Right? The ones under the blue are 3 digits. And Apple's anybody's guess. I don't do Apple. I learned a long time ago. Well, first of all, I learned that Apple was too expensive for me. Right? So I never bothered with them. And then I also learned through the years that Apple doesn't play well with others. They're vertically integrated. All their software is made for their computers only. Now they've sort of branched out over the years, but it's still a guessing game as to whether your Apple computer, your Mac, will function properly under all circumstances. So if you like your Mac, go ahead and use it. But if you have problems with it, don't ask me. Right? Go to call up the Apple tech support or somebody that is familiar with Apple. Okay, I get down off my soapbox now. I think that's everything I can think of to help you get going with this. So prep your lab notebook so that I can grade it and give you 80% or better. Then the demo will open. And very often there will be, let's see, modules. Let's see if I have, oh, you do have Boyle's Law. There it is. Okay. Boyle's Law doesn't have a demonstration video, I don't think. Well, I'm a student, so let me go back as an instructor and see if there's one that needs to be enabled. Okay, Boyle's Law, lab techniques, Boyle's Law. Here we go. No, there's just the demo. All right, so we don't have an introductory for Boyle's Law. Calorimetry, pre-lab discussion we do have for Boyle's. I mean for calorimetry. Okay, so Boyle's we don't have an intro. Let's see. Molar mass by titration, that's the demo. I do have some notes. All right. Oh, there's an introduction. It's not Lucky Williamson's lab introduction. Maybe I need to enable that one so that you'll have demonstration video for that one. Let's see, what's this? That's nothing. And the last one. There are only 7 labs in the whole course. Demo lab. There's an introduction for this one. Okay. And then there's the assignment. And this is the introductory video. The demo won't open up until you submit the lab pages. Okay. So that's all I have to say.